Good evening. Hey, Melody, how are you doing? You're glad to see the topic. You need mental health right now? What way do you mean? Oops, sorry. I'm going to wait a little bit for some people to come in. Lots of people voted, and I know there's some other creators that some of you guys follow as well on live. So I'm going to give it just a couple of minutes for some people to trickle in. That way I don't have to continue to say the disclaimer I'm going to say and things of that nature. So, hey Della, how are you? You've had a busy night. We were modding Brit's live earlier. I appreciate you coming in. Great title. Right? So like I said, I'm just going to let a few people, oh, thank you, Della. I'm going to let a few people trickle in. That way I don't have to go over the disclaimer I'm going to say before we get into the nitty gritty of everything. However, I don't care how many people know. Maybe some of you guys can address this if people ask about it. I'm having to film in like an open area of my house tonight because I am the only one in the house. And that's going to be here all night. So I have to be where the dogs are. Otherwise they will get into stuff, and then I'll do what I did one live and keep leaving the room to check on them. So I just pulled everything out to the dining area. So there might be an echo. You'll probably hear dogs walking by. You might even hear them drink or start playing. So the dad challenge is going off. What do you mean he's going off? Like he's going off live, or he's like digging in on somebody? Hey, Dark Lily. Hey, Jen. How is everybody doing? Which article? Dang it. I would have postponed this or pushed it back a little bit if I had known. I don't even know if I know what article he's referring to. Jen, do you know which article? If I pull up his video, there will be an echo. And I don't know how he is about people playing his stuff in their videos. Well, I see his title. I would be really interested to know what he is saying. The one that is, was it an actual article or was it like a video? Somebody from the, it's an article. Well, I mean, I don't want to talk about it because I don't know what the article says. Of course she has, Jen. What else is freaking new? Anything to make the dad in a bad light, Karen is going to do. I mean, that's who she is. Also, I'm probably, if I lean on the table, it might shake. If I do that and it's bothering you guys, let me know. Also, the lighting's off, so I keep turning like a weird color of blue. Sorry, this is all over the place. I didn't realize I was going to be home alone until about 30 minutes ago. So while I was doing my live anyways, so I was not prepared. They're saying the GoFundMe has a fraud alert on it. Well, has anybody been able to verify that there's a fraud alert? And I wonder what the process is for that fraud alert to be put on, because so many people are like trying to, people like Katie who support Katie are, this is the only thing I'm going to talk about this in this live, and then we're going to get into a disclaimer and get into the topic. I know some people are here specifically for the topic at hand tonight. That's not to be rude. If we talk about it, I mean, it can tie into some of this other stuff, so that's fine. Like I've always said, I don't want to like keep you guys from talking about things you want to talk about, but I also want to hold true to making this live, at least part of it, what it was set to be, if that makes any sense. So to address that, I feel that nobody, and I don't know, I haven't even looked at the critical case. See, I'm super blue. I haven't even looked at the critical case stuff or watched any of her videos. I don't do the Facebook thing or anything like that. So I don't know what's going on with her, and I don't know how long she has been on this fight against the dad. But I can tell you that, you know, to me, it seems like all the coverage that was happening of this particular story were either super positive for the dad and the child or just for the child and remaining neutral until Katie's video. And then now all of a sudden there are all these other people kind of supporting just the mom side and not addressing the dad, not addressing the child. And that's the main issue I'm having with this, is the fact that people are really making it about the parents, but they will say in their videos, like Katie does, that it's about the child, but everything they talk about has nothing to do with the child. It's all about proving or disproving a parent. It doesn't matter. If you believe the child's disclosure is it. I mean, yeah, I know Katie's live. I saw she was live when I saw both of them were live, but you know, that's not uncommon for, you know, both of them to be live on a Friday night. So I didn't think anything was going on. So about this fraud stuff, I wonder if because so many people have kind of felt comfortable talking against the dad, if all of these people are alerting GoFundMe with their opinions, because there is no, as far as I've seen, there's been no evidence to prove that the dad is making any of this up. I don't think anybody has. Otherwise, we would have seen it. It wouldn't still be relevant. So I have a feeling people reached out to GoFundMe and maybe had this be put in place. But my thing is, if it was a fraudulent act, why did the judge not put a stop to it entirely at the beginning? Does that make sense? Like the judge knew about it and there were concerns about the GoFundMe and like where the money was going to be allocated to. So if there really was any legalities, in my opinion, for it to be considered fraud, that judge would have addressed it. I understand that judge is not a criminal judge. However, that judge is still a judge and knows the law to some degree. So that's just super, super weird to me. Thanks, It's Brick Glow. Thanks. This is what I was doing at the end of your live. That's why I kind of went MIA there for a little bit. So yeah. Jen said the fraud alert is being said that the crisis management firm that was hired, the law firm, is representing S's mom. And I understood that that's what you meant from your first comment, that the ones who put out the article are also representing the mother of the case, which obviously there is some cross-contamination there, in my opinion. But tonight we're going to be talking about mental health. And before we get into it, I know a lot of people have come in last minute. I'm in a different area of my house, so the lighting and the volume may be different. You're also probably going to be hearing my dogs play and walk and drink, and I'm sorry if that is in the least bit distracting. I can't do anything about it. So also another thing I wanted to do, and I will probably be making like a thank you video to you guys, is we all know I kind of reached the 1,000 subscribers threshold. Well, I finally reached, I think a few days ago, the watch time required for monetization. So I guess they reviewed my channel, and amazingly, somehow I got approved for monetization and somebody like Sloan doesn't. I don't understand that. I talk about things that are just as sensitive as he does. But I did want you guys to be aware of that, just so it doesn't seem like I'm doing anything shady. If you go back and watch something, I've gone through and tried to monetize most of my videos. I didn't monetize all of them, but a good bit of them are. So I did just kind of want to put that disclaimer out there so anybody who's in the chat will know, especially if you are a regular watcher of mine, you will see that in the playback, you know, eventually, if you're watching it a few days later, that, you know, that's what's happening. Thank you, Britt. I was going to tell you, but I didn't want to say it in your live. I try not to promote my own channel and other people's lives. If they want to shout me out, like, that's fine, but I'm not trying to gain supporters by consistently pushing my name. That's why I don't. If you shout me out and the creator notices it, of course I thank them because I appreciate the acknowledgement, but I'm not going to do that on my own. That happened in somebody else's live a couple of nights ago. So I just want to say, if you guys ever do promote me in somebody else's stream, I super appreciate it. But I don't be surprised if you see me in other people's lives and I'm not saying anything about my channel. I don't. Most of the people I watch and that I've kind of are part of this community, like Britt, they already know about my channel and they've already shouted me out. And I don't expect multiple shout outs from different creators. One is plenty. And if I get more, awesome. If I don't, I'm cool with that too. So you see some sites are reporting on how it's a fraud alert, but nothing is showing you. I'm going to look into what's all going on after this live. Anyways, what I wanted to say, aside from those things, is in talking about mental health tonight, I do want to make it very clear that I am not a mental health professional. Do I have education about mental health? Absolutely. My degree requires it, but I am only a bachelor's. I am not a master's. So I am limited. I can't practice on my own. There are some ways I could practice with licensed people over me, and it also depends on what state you're in on how you can practice. So I just want that to kind of be known to everybody. This conversation is probably going to be very general, just kind of talking about maybe our experiences or what we're struggling with, ways that we have coped with it, to be a support to each other, to everybody, anybody who's watching this in the playback, because sorry if you can hear him drinking. Are you done? No, he drinks a lot. Sorry. So, with that being said, a good way to start is, you know, we talked about substance use very generally a few lives ago, and it seemed to really help a few individuals who were in the chat, and they were able to, you know, gain some kind of clarity and support through that conversation. And I hope, okay, you didn't hear him. I don't know what this sounds like until afterwards. Sorry. So, I felt that this is something that we should do, and I've talked about it before. This is something that I want to do every once in a while, maybe once a week, depending on how you guys feel about it, what the topics are. Just talking about how serious some things are that get overlooked. Over the last couple of years, I feel that mental health has not been as stigmatized. Like, I'm sure we all are aware years and years ago, I'm not going to estimate because I don't want to be lying or making stuff up, but years ago, you know, it was really a bad thing. Like, you were looked at as if you had a serious disability if you had any kind of mental health. I mean, something as simple as postpartum depression, which a lot of women, it is very common for women to get postpartum after having a child. They were thought to be like seriously insane and put in asylums because of their postpartum back in the day. And when you think of it in that way, we have come a very long way as a society in not allowing it to be as stigmatized as it once was. However, it has taken so many years and so much of like the average person coming out and being willing to say, I've been diagnosed with this and this is how I handle it. You know, so I hope that as time goes on, it becomes less and less stigmatized. There's still people who struggle with having mental health. Obviously, there's people who struggle with being open about their mental health because they're afraid of judgment, especially if you have a mental health disorder or diagnosis that is not as commonly known. You know, not to bring up drama, but the whole DID situation that happened with Trisha Paytas, that was so damaging to that community. Because of my degree, I watch a lot of different mental health channels to learn better. Because you can read a textbook, you can read the DSM-5, you can do all of these things and have all of the knowledge, but it is totally different, especially when you're like me and you're not practicing. It is totally different to hear how somebody is living with it, living through it, and how it affects them daily. It is totally different. And everybody can say, most people, I'm one of the people who would say almost every person on this planet has anxiety to some degree or another, whether it's situational or it be social anxiety. Like, we all get anxious about something at some point in our lives. Is it long lasting? Not always. And that's when you're typically not going to be diagnosed with it and maybe need medication management. But we all have anxiety. Whenever I go to any kind of job interview or I'm put into a new situation, I get extremely anxious and I start thinking, and it's not just like a normal anxious for me. Like, I typically am not an anxious person at all. Nothing really bothers me. Nothing really works me up. But something changing, or like me having a lot of pressure on myself out of nowhere, like a job interview, knowing I want to have this job, I need to have this job, those thoughts. And then sitting in the waiting room, I begin to fear like the absolute worst. And to some degree, that is having anxiety. Now, is that having, anxiety where it is debilitating me? No, I am still able to function. And that's why I don't have or carry that diagnosis. The thing with, and I will be honest, with the mental health I know I have and have been diagnosed with, have I probably struggled with a whole heck more? Yeah. And I'm sure I have. And I will be honest about my journey through everything I have gone through. As you guys know, I'm pretty open. I'm pretty honest and transparent with you guys. You can tell from the kind of content I've put up on my channel that's not commentary content. I'm here to spread awareness and to talk about things that I have experienced. And I understand if you guys don't want to fully participate in these kind of discussions. So don't feel pressured to talk about your experience. If you want to, or if you want to mention a certain mental health illness or something you've heard about or get clarification about, if I can provide it to you, I will. If I can't, I will look for it while we're on the live. And if I still can't find it, I will try to direct you somewhere where you can. So with that being said, I'm probably going to be in and out of paying attention to the chat while we have these discussions. So, hi, Susie Q. How are you? Same here about the job. So, yeah, I mean, I think everybody has that. And that's just to kind of show people who are maybe, I mentioned that to show people who may still be on the fence or may still be afraid to like talk about it. Everybody has that. And everybody kind of experiences some form of depression, I would think, throughout their lives, especially once you get to be a certain age in adulthood. You've experienced loss, I'm sure, to some degree. And that can be a form of short-term depression. Does that mean you get diagnosed? No. Does that mean that you get put on medication for it? No. Does it mean it can end up being more severe? Yes, it can. Yes, it does. You are correct, Melody. In order to get an actual diagnosis from a doctor, like a psychiatrist or a psychologist, it has anxiety to be diagnosed to you, is it has to be debilitating to your everyday life. You literally fear death about whatever it is. Like, that's how severe it is. And to the common person, I'm turning blue again, to the common person, it's something you kind of think of and you're like, oh yeah, anxiety, and you brush it off, kind of like I have. But to actually live with anxiety, it is that bad. Like, they feel like they're going to die. They get that worked up, which typically in hand can result in panic attacks. Yeah, and it is for a prolonged period of time. It's a certain amount, it's a time frame you have to have been struggling with it. And I can't remember what it is. And I don't have a DSM-5. I've thought about purchasing one, but I haven't. And I have an abnormal psychology book in my house somewhere. I could go, I know where it's at. I could go get it. Seasonal depression. For you, it's the summer. Yeah, I don't think I struggle with depression at all. Have I had really low times? Yeah. And to be honest, like, even since when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't start my YouTube channel to help with how I was feeling. I started my YouTube channel to feel like I was providing something because I felt something was lost. I've gotten some sad news today, so I'm already kind of emotional, and I don't want to cry on live, so I might take a minute. So when I started my YouTube channel, I had always lived in the same area. So I knew the town, I knew most of the people around me. Like, the town wasn't large, but I knew the people around me. I lived very close to my parents, and the move here was hard. When you're a military spouse, you know that comes with the territory. And I did. I knew eventually. My father was military. We had just always happened to get really lucky with not moving around a lot. But my husband got orders, and we knew about them. Gosh, how long did we know about the orders for? Sorry, I have a dog here. How long did we know? We knew about the orders for, I think, 3 months before we actually moved. And I mean, it was okay. I was fine with it. And I'm okay. Don't mistake me getting upset. It's really because of the other news I got 30 minutes before my live tonight. But we moved, and I had always had like a good set of at least a few people I could call if I ever needed anything. I had my parents. That's the hardest part, and I hope they're not on tonight. So it was hard, especially when you come from a history like I did. So would I say I'm fighting depression now? No. Is it a hard time? Absolutely. But this goes to show that you can struggle with things emotionally and it not be a clinical issue. And that's not to say, don't tell me you guys are crying too, because that's going to make it worse. And it's not to say that like depression doesn't get this bad. That's to show how bad depression can be for people. Because I'm super sad, and it's really, I promise it's because the other news I got was out of nowhere. So I'm not in depression. I like during the day, I'm super happy. Talking about things that make me sad make me cry. And usually you can ask almost anybody in my life, I do not cry. I know if you have seen my growing up stories, there are maybe 2 or 3 videos where I break down. But that's about the only time I ever really break down, because they're high intensity, high emotion situations. So it's just to show that we can all struggle with our own things. And although right now I'm very upset, I'm very sad, I couldn't tell you if I'm going to be okay after this live as far as like upset, but I'm not questioning if I want to get out of bed in the morning. I'm not questioning, am I worth it? I'm not having those thoughts. And that's the kind of thought process that really comes with depression. Struggling to get out of bed, struggling to, do the most simple tasks, to bathe, to brush your teeth, to even eat. I mean, depression and anxiety, although are talked about as if they are nonchalant and common diagnosis, are actually very serious ones that a lot of creators, TikTokers, Instagrammers want to push their mistakes on. And it really, although people are saying, or people have said, that it takes away from the stigma of mental health, I honestly don't know if that's the case. Because if anything, it is lessening the meaning of these diagnoses. And these diagnoses can be super, super hard for people and super serious. And they're saying, oh, just because I didn't make a video when I said I would, it's because of my depression. I'm not saying that that's not factual. It could very well be your depression, but they need to be educating people before they're wanting to blame their maybe crappy behavior on a mental health disorder. I'm going to try and read through the chat because I know I've missed quite a bit. If I happen to holler at the dogs, I'm sorry. One of them was just trying to get into something. Oh man, what happened? Jen asked, is it similar to winter depression, or is it not related to lack of sun? And Lily responded and said, I don't think it can be a real season depression. I'm just much more emotional, depressed, anxious during the times of long periods of daylight. That would almost definitely be a seasonal depression. It doesn't have to do with the sun. It kind of has to do with the weather in general, like times of year. And usually it kind of has to do not only with like the type of weather that's around, it's like what you're experiencing. So sometimes it could just be the holidays. Sometimes you can prevent a migraine by crying. I wish I could do that. Maybe I'll try that next time I feel a migraine. I can't usually cry though. It is for sure. Crying can have some good benefits. Hey, Michelle. You normally get migraines after a hard cry. I usually get my migraines when I'm super stressed out, or since we have moved, the weather change here is affecting me more because we're a lot higher in elevation than I'm used to being at. So that's been a challenge when we first got here, and then it's starting to cool off here. So I've kind of been struggling with them a little bit here and there. Oh, thanks, Stella. I appreciate you promoting that. So, man, it's just hard to talk about. So, although I am struggling with like my own fit of being sad, I know it's not anything beyond a temporary thing. I know this isn't going to last until tomorrow. It's really me getting over recent news, which makes thinking about anything emotional or sad harder to talk about right now. Which, when I found out, I was like, really? I found out 30 minutes before I have to go live and talk about mental health. That was really my reaction. I was like crying, and I was like, really? So I cried before the live. I got ready, and then I started talking about stuff that I figured would end up making me cry. So if I cry more, don't worry about it. I'm fine. I'm just upset. So, I don't want to linger on, I don't know what's going on with this lighting. I'm not going to linger too long on any one particular topic unless you guys want to focus on one topic. So we talked about anxiety and depression briefly. The only thing I know I have ever been diagnosed with, and I'm sure when I was younger, I was diagnosed with other stuff, is ADHD, which I did not know that I even had ADHD until I was not too long ago. Sorry, I'm drinking coffee, so it's making me hiccup and burp. How old was I when I got that? Like 3.5, 4 years ago, is when I found out I had ADHD. And that's because I requested a copy of my records from being in foster care. And it was listed in those records that I had it. It wasn't listed if I was taking medication. So I don't know if I was taking medication or not when I was younger. When I saw that, I asked my mom. I said, hey, and I let them review the packet that I got, because I ended up not getting all of my records, which is a whole nother issue that I can rant about if I wanted to. I only got like 25 pages, and I was in care for 10 years. There's no way. So I asked my mom, I said, it says here that I had ADHD. Did you know about this? And keep in mind, I was like 24, 25. And when I was adopted, I was 10. And my mom was a teacher, and my dad was military. And when I asked her about this as an adult, she said, I knew about it, but I didn't want the stigma to carry with you, so I never told you. Which I was not upset about at all. That's not the kind of relationship that I have with my parents. I do have ADHD. I know it doesn't always carry into your adulthood. I have not been to a psychiatrist or anybody since I've been an adult. So I don't know if I still have it. However, I can tell you my attention span it's hard to maintain unless I'm actively engaged with something. I will lose interest when I am working. Although I am very efficient at any job I do, I bounce from different things. My house, although clean, I know where everything is, but it makes no sense to my husband or anybody else on why I put stuff where I put it. I mean, and so I have symptoms to allude to the fact that I probably still am suffering with it. But I've never been medicated, and I seem to manage it perfectly fine without medication. I know it can be a whole lot worse than what I'm like, the things that I struggle with. And you could even probably argue that there are things everybody struggles with. And my husband tried to have that argument with me, or discussion. It wasn't an argument, discussion with me once. And over the years, we've been together for almost 9 years. He's come to terms that no, it's severe with me. It's not normal. But I am gonna catch up. I don't want to miss anything, especially with such an important topic. If anybody's, providing their story, I don't want to miss it. You suffer from depression, anxiety, and PTSD. It's no picnic, especially in the fall and winter. Yeah, and people will oftentimes, I had my hair up today. I guess I have a bump from it. People will often not realize that there can be multiple disorders at one time. Like in your case, that you have multiple diagnoses, and they all are different, and they all are affecting you in different manners. And I'm sure making it at times extremely difficult to live. And I'm so grateful that you're here, Michelle. And I hope that you are always, when you're struggling, that you're always making sure you're getting the help that you can with where you're at. No, ma'am. And that you have a good support system around you. I'm not sure what Jen and Lily, I think you guys are like kind of talking about this, but in a different way too. I think most people don't sleep well when they're scared or don't feel safe. I think that's somewhat of a normal. Thank you, Melody, for acknowledging Michelle while I was talking. I appreciate that. And I completely agree with that statement that no one should feel less than because of it. No one should ever feel less than because of something they probably had no control over. You don't wake up one morning and decide, I want to have anxiety. I want to have depression. I want to have, I want to suffer from PTSD. You don't, and obviously there's so many, I couldn't even name them all. Stop, dogs. Go lay down. But there are so many, not to make any less than, but we're all still people. We're all just living our way through life the way that we know best. Hey, Claire, how are you? And I just moved way too quick and lost my spot. You were in foster care too. The outcome is the root of much of my grief. Yeah, for sure. Being in foster care is a whole nother feat. If you've lived in it, or a group home, or an orphanage, or anywhere where you didn't have at least one stable, supportive parent, unfortunately, you are probably suffering from something long-term as an adult if you didn't have it addressed as a child. And even if you did have it addressed as a child, it can still affect you long-term. Dark Lily said there's an aspect of, being able to hide in the dark and feeling more safe in the dark, less exposed. It's related to PTSD more than anything else, I think, really. That's me exactly. As long as they're doing what's right by you, Michelle, that's all you can ask. And if you ever start to struggle with that, make sure you let them know. Exactly. Any kind of mental health is typically, I shouldn't say any, most are typically like not seen with the eye. I'm glad you have somebody in your life, Michelle, to help support you and make sure that you are doing what's best for you. I'm glad you're here too, Melody. So those are that's my story with my mental health. I'm sure I have, like I said, I'm sure I've struggled with other things. Do I still probably have undiagnosed mental health from the things I have experienced? I would almost bet money on it. I shouldn't laugh about it, but although I mean, I'm not weird or anything like that, and I don't want to say I'm normal either, but like the way I approach things is very objectively, which a lot of people have the ability to do, but I come from such an objective, stop, Paisley. I come from such an objective like mindset. I have a guard up. I don't just fully trust everybody. And if anything, I'm more likely to disbelieve people and question people than I am to go the opposite way when meeting anybody. Hey, no, Whiskey, come here. Sorry. Not, you guys may not be able to hear him, but I can hear him and it's distracting for me. You suffer from severe depression, and I'm not going to say your names when you're saying what you're diagnosed with because people in the chat can see it. For anybody in the replay, I don't want them to know or try and stigmatize you about it later. Severe depression, ADHD, and ADD. It stems from an injury 12 years ago during a softball game. Your identity as an athlete was ripped. So, and that's another aspect of mental health that people really, I don't think, totally understand, that, you know, you're not always born with it. The more severe and more, the ones that need more intervention almost are ones that you're typically born with. But there are some really, really serious mental health that can result from something like an injury or like the loss of somebody or trauma. I mean, unfortunately, trauma is the main root for a lot of different mental health issues. Yeah, PTSD is a huge, huge horse. And there's different forms of PTSD now. I don't know what they all are, but there is a form that's shorter term, and there has been more that are longer term and longer lasting. PTSD, being a part of the military world, is very prevalent. I mean, it is obviously around otherwise. Almost in every career field I have been a part of, I work with clients that typically have PTSD from a number of things. It is very common. Thanks, Stella. Yeah, it's not so much them being a distraction for you guys, it's them being a distraction for me, because once they start like roughhousing, I can hear them, so I try to talk over them, and then I get frustrated with them, so I just rather tell them to stop. You feel like it takes vacation, but it never really goes away. I mean, Dark Lily, if it ever does get to a point where you can tell it's affecting you daily and you haven't talked to anybody, I would highly suggest talking to somebody. And just because you talk to somebody does not mean you're going to be medicated, and medication is always a choice. You don't have to take medication even if it's offered to you. It's okay, Jen. Acknowledging not knowing and your lack of knowledge is better to do than to spout stuff off as if you know what you're talking about, because it'll come back and bite you in the rear end. Change the course of your life. I hope I'm not getting Melody and Melanie mixed up. If I have, I'm sorry. Seeing your names together like that, I got super confused there for a second. Oh my gosh, Melanie. Well, I wish you the best whenever that surgery. I don't know if it's a surgery or if it's inpatient, outpatient. But I hope whenever you have that you go through it smoothly and that you don't have any complications and that everything works out well and that you come out better. I don't know if I have family members, let me put it that way, who have had multiple surgeries and not all of them have always been successful. The dog just plopped down. You probably saw my backdrop move. So surgery is a huge thing. I'm a person who I'm usually like either the first to know or I find out after the fact that something has happened. So not because of how I mean, I can remain pretty level-headed, but it makes me worry for the initial surgery. Depending on what it is, I just kind of worry. I think everybody worries when a loved one is needing to have medical intervention. It's scary. There's so many things that can go wrong, but also so many that can go right. I'm sorry that happened. Dark Lily, unfortunately, that is the nature of having mental health is, the professional may quit or they may retire or they may move out of your area for a different job opportunity. And you've built this rapport. Like if you've been to any kind of mental health services, you know how important it is to have a good understanding with your therapist or your counselor, have that level playing field where you have the rapport to feel comfortable to tell them everything. It's hard to start back over. However, I would suggest you start shopping around. That I don't mean it as in the term literally, but try a few. And if you have that therapist office number, sometimes if you just call and ask if like who in the area has similar techniques to that particular therapist you had, they can give you some names and resources for you to try and see those people and see if you click on the same level. Wow, I'm sorry, Melanie. That's such a young age to be struggling with so many things. And you've had so many surgeries, it sounds like. I'm sorry that's happened to you, Lily. I would suggest, if you're comfortable with it, I would suggest you trying to find like a lot of places are doing it through Zoom anyways. Try and find like somebody who's an actual therapist if you're going to go to the internet, but you can find some amazing people on the internet that do counseling. And I'm not sure if you've disclosed, and if you haven't, don't feel you need to. Depending on what you're struggling with, if you haven't been diagnosed with anything and you're just struggling with like everyday kind of situations and like working your way through them, Sometimes life coaches can even help with that. But if you're specifically looking for something as far as like mental health, then you'll need to stay in that realm. You can do them in tandem, even have a mental health coach, not a mental health coach, if only those existed, right? Have a life coach or a life mentor in conjunction with therapy that can really help motivate people. I'm glad you feel that way, Melanie. I hope, everybody who, meanders in and out feels that way. Yeah, I've actually, not to make this about me at all, but I've actually, where I'm at, I can do that kind of work without a license. And I have some, my degree covers it. I've thought about doing life coaching before. Not that you guys fully see that side of me. I've thought about it. I've been told by family and by coworkers and stuff like that in my life that I would be really good at that kind of work because I am a person who really doesn't like school. It took me a very long time to get my bachelor's, and I got my bachelor's because I knew I wanted to be in the field of social work, in the field of working with communities and helping people and things of that nature. So I knew I had to get a bachelor's to be able to do anything that I wanted to. But I ended up doing really well. And like it was offered an accelerated master's program when I got my bachelor's, but I had no interest at the time in counseling. And now I'm to the point where I don't know if I'm ready to go back to school or if going back to school would even be worth it. So I've actually toyed about with the idea of maybe trying to do some life coaching for some people. I'm glad you like it here, Melody, as especially for somebody who's only this being one of your newer or first streams or videos to come into. Yeah, I know. I think it depends on where you're at, Melody, for how they charge. I know the rates of licensed therapist. I would not charge that much. And yeah, any kind of life coaching can't be covered by insurance because it's not really viewed at life coaching and mentoring isn't really viewed as helping. So insurance can't cover it. It's not anything related to medical issues, so it wouldn't be able to be covered by your insurance. Yeah, that's true. There is no universal education standard for life coaches in most states, which is absolutely true. So there are people who could you quit hitting the table, please? There are people who have no education at all about anything and get into the field. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad at it. They could be very good at it. The only reason I would feel comfortable doing it and charging anybody anything for it would be because I do have a pretty good education with my degree. So I've learned, this has kind of gone off topic, but I have learned that since moving where I'm from, like my social work degree is just like a general bachelor's of social work. So we covered mental health. We learned about, substance use, like literally social work, micro level change, society, psychology, sociology. Like I had to learn all of those things for my bachelor's. And then I get here and to the state I'm living in now, and my master's would have just been a master's of social work. Where I'm at now, they have specific masters for specific areas. Like there's a master's in social work for substance use, a master's in social work in relation to family counseling. And I'm like, what in the world? Why are we breaking this up so much? You should be, if you're going to be a master's level of social work, you should be educated on all aspects of it, because that degree is not going to transfer if you move out of this state. You would be really good at it. Yeah. And Britt, you've kind of talked to me in the DM. So other than like my lives and my videos, you get a sense of like who I actually am. And I'm the same on here as I'm, if anything, I'm just a little bit more censored, and I do more infliction and like get into stuff a little bit more on here just for the sake of not being monotone and boring. But I get that a lot, and I've really been thinking about it. I'm not a super business savvy person. Me being super honest about myself, I'm not business savvy. Like I don't know how to promote my YouTube. I could care less, to be honest, but I'm just saying, like, I don't even know the very simple basics of promoting a social media. So me trying to promote a business endeavor, I feel like I would crash and burn, and that scares me. And it doesn't necessarily prevent me from trying. I just don't even know where to start. Britt, you know I'm always here for you if you need to talk. And hopefully this has kind of allowed more people to feel open and like understand, like, you know, we can talk about whatever we want. Could you quit? So sounds like a great bachelor. It was a good bachelor's program. I've learned so much in that school that, I mean, I'm sure I didn't even retain everything. I kept a lot of textbooks just for like me to refer to. Like I still have my abnormal psych book. Stop, whiskey. So consider a business coach. I would. I mean, it's not something I'm totally opposed to. I don't know if it's another thing that I can juggle right now, to be quite honest with you guys. You know, I work a full-time job. I have my husband and my dogs that I care for, as I'm sure many of you have family and pets that you guys care for. And then doing my YouTube, although I love doing this and it's been a wonderful outlet for me, I don't know if I could pile on trying to figure out a business in addition to that. I've been toying with the idea for like a month now, so I've been ongoingly thinking about it. We'll see. So Jen said, isn't it common for diagnoses to be misdiagnosed? Yeah, it is. Especially when you get like some of the more difficult things to diagnose, like DID. I mentioned that earlier, that there are so many nuances with some really hard to manage mental health that it's hard to diagnose. You can easily be diagnosed with anxiety and depression and have PTSD and it not be looked at. So, I mean, you can definitely get misdiagnosed. One of the issues that people struggle with mental health is medication. And I'm not going to get on the stance of if you should be medicated or not. That's totally your choice. I would support you in either decision you take. If it helps you, then definitely do it. But medication is what people struggle with because it is a process. Mental health is kind of like, it's a chemical imbalance in your body, just like substances affect your chemical balances. Mental health can affect them as well. And taking those medications is supposed to balance it back out. And it takes time for medications to be effective the way that they're meant to be effective. And oftentimes what happens is people don't like the way that they feel initially because it's their bodies trying to level out, that they stop taking them before they get to that steady. Is anyone here struggling with trying to get support? Someone who has COVID and is a high risk case, asking because I am. She's handling it, but what kind of support are you talking about, Melody? What kind of I just spit everywhere. That was disgusting. What kind of support is she looking for? And where is she at? Like, is she at home or is this individual in a facility? You just want to support her emotionally. This could likely kill her. I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, if you're wanting her just to feel support emotionally, there's a number of things you could do for her to feel that sense of, love and companionship. She keeps going back. Well, I'm sure I shouldn't say I'm sure, but if she is positive and is hospitalized, I don't think they are allowing people who are positive to have visitors. What you could do is next time she is due to be home, try and set up some kind of thing for her, not to where you have to have contact, but like maybe put a whole bunch of notes on her door and like let her know after she has seen them that you'll clean them up, so it's something she doesn't have to worry about. Little thoughtful things like that. Obviously, you could send her flowers, try and FaceTime her if you know any of her friends or her family who maybe she hasn't talked to in a while but would like to, reaching out to them and just letting them know the situation to see if they would be willing to send her a letter or, to send you an email that you can print out for her. I mean, there's a number of things you could do to support her emotionally as a friend. And if anybody else has any ideas, I'm not always the most creative person when it comes to like being thoughtful. I'm super generic when it comes to that kind of stuff. Okay. Yeah, I would just suggest, like, since you're both kind of in a situation where you can't see one another or can't travel, I would try to figure out some of her friends and like maybe do a group Zoom call. There's games that you can play, like Words with Friends. There's different kind of games that you can play that maybe you guys could try to play together, send invites to each other and like be on Zoom together. That way you're having that kind of connection as if you were in person. That would probably mean a lot to somebody. It might mean a lot to you as well to like have the face-to-face interaction and be able to play a game with somebody. It's just an idea. You could be, obviously you're struggling with it to some degree. But she might pull, I don't know, and I don't want you to say because it's not you, it's somebody else. But if she's high risk, I'm assuming she has some medical conditions that have put her in high risk. If she's already been able to go home a couple of times, I would hope, and I will keep her in my thoughts, that she will, pull through it okay. Preparing yourself though is a good idea if you know that potentially could be an outcome for her, just to prepare yourself emotionally. And I would make sure that your support system is aware that this is going on in the event that it doesn't go well for her. But if she's in a facility or a hospital, I know it's not the best thing to deal with, but they are giving medications to ease the pain from it. So hopefully she is not in too much suffering from it. Yeah. So, is there any other specific mental health questions you guys have, or situations or diagnoses you've heard of that you want to talk about? Melody, good ways to build support systems are actually to Google with whatever has caused you to be in your situation. Google support groups for said situation and just read through some forums. And if you feel a good vibe from a forum, then subscribe to it. That's a very easy way to build a support system for yourself. I know there are people on the internet. Just be safe. Make sure you're being safe about it, not giving people your personal information, like your real full name or your address. Be very general about that kind of stuff, and you'll be fine. There's Facebook groups if you're on Facebook. Just be careful of toxic ones. There's always toxic groups out there. Yeah, no problem. I am here just to help people as much as I can. You consult Google daily. What do you consult Google about, Jen? I think everybody consults Google to some extent. I usually talk to Google about directions because I don't venture very far. I kind of go to work and come home. Obviously, I've gone to the grocery store, but aside from that, I really haven't. I don't know the layout of this town. It's a lot more complicated than where I'm from. So I've struggled with that. It's been nice to meet you too, Melody. I appreciate you talking with us and being open and vulnerable about some of the things that you're experiencing. It takes a lot to get on a public platform and talk about what you may be struggling with, especially when it's something as sensitive as mental health. That's why, mental health and most medical records in general, mental health records are even more so confidential than medical records. Working in social work and with the community, in every professional job I've had, you have to get specific forms filled out to get people's mental health records. And even then, it can be more restricted off of that facility. They may want you to fill out X number more documents with the client to make sure that they can release it to you, because mental health is that confidential and that secure. You looked up what DID is. Dissociative identity disorder. I know you looked it up. It's something that is stemmed from trauma, and from my understanding, it's typically a childhood trauma where you break off into, you have different people, essentially. They, depending on the individual diagnosed with it, they refer to them as different terms. I'm not super educated on it. I haven't super recently because there was some drama that happened in that community, believe it or not, a few months ago. But there are some really good channels. If you just look up DID channels, yeah, it was, which isn't an appropriate term for it, and people still mislabel it because it's not multiple personalities. It's their own individual people with their own individual experiences and knowledge and information. So it's not a personality disorder. But if you are interested in that, it's hard to watch some of that stuff because when they're providing education, obviously some of the times they talk about some harder topics. But a lot of channels are super educational who cover DID, who have it. And, they talk about the myths and the legends that come with the diagnosis, and they educate you on it. I don't know even who to link anymore because of the drama that happened. But just Google it. Google's our best friend. Just Google or put it in the YouTube search bar, DID, and a whole bunch of stuff is going to come up. You'll probably see this stuff with Trisha Paytas. Trisha's just a troll. You just have to keep that in mind. Like, she's a troll and she stirred up that community, and it was really unfortunate that she did such a disgusting thing. She did the same thing with the LGBT community. She's just all over the place. Yeah, Trisha Paytas, is that who you're talking about? She's horrible. I mean, I really don't know my personal feelings on Trisha Paytas, to be quite honest. Is she nasty? Yeah, she is nasty. Does she do crappy things? Yeah, but she's definitely a troll, and she admits she's a troll. Like, she does the stuff that she does because she wants the attention, and it's how she's gained her success, and it's how she continues her success, to be honest. Like, we can't really be mad at her for finding a way to be successful. Now, when she does things that are offensive and, purely because she wants to stir stuff up, is there an issue with that? Yeah, that's definitely problematic behavior, which I have an issue with a lot of YouTubers' behaviors. Trisha Paytas and Tana Mojo are two of the more popular YouTubers that I absolutely despise Tana Mojo. Trisha, I can kind of just side eye and move past, but Tana Mojo, I can't. Like, she promotes terrible things to her young audience. We know her audience is young. The stuff she talks about is just, she's called out on her behavior. She'll address that she's been called out on her bad behavior and then take everything back. I don't understand why address it in the first place. Why are you doing it? Why are you addressing it if you don't really want to address it, or if you're not being honest when you're addressing it? That's why people are so skeptical of YouTubers and stuff now, because of people like Trisha Paytas and Jeffree Star and all of these other larger creators who come on this platform and say one thing and then do the literal opposite, and then come on here and apologize, typically blaming it on mental health, and say, I was super depressed in that moment. But all we see is them going out and partying during a freaking pandemic. It's like, well, were you really that depressed during that time? Or are you using a diagnosis you have as an excuse onto why you didn't find it important to address to your audience, who has supported you and helped you gain the wealth that you have and the success that you have and the name that you have. Like, people just totally lose track of the idea that their subscribers got them to where they are. With almost every social media star, that's how I feel. The only one who, like, if you go back and watch their old videos, yes, the content has somewhat changed. Obviously, the quality has changed, but like, who still kind of seems like the same person that they were when they started is PewDiePie. And I know he can be controversial in his own ways, and I've never paid attention to his drama. I could care less. I'm subscribed to him like I think almost every other person on this planet is almost, but I don't watch his content. Jen said, oh my goodness, Micah brought me to the T channels, but then I was sucked down the rabbit hole that is these influencers. Yeah, Micah's situation like brought awareness to a lot of things. Like, the overall situation, although disgusting and horrific, really did bring knowledge to the adoption system. And although that particular family did an international adoption, it still brought awareness to it, which I hate that, a little boy has had and is going to continue to suffer from it. But I'm glad that the light's being shed on it, because these issues are not just now happening. These issues have been ongoing for years. And believe it or not, things have gotten better than they used to be. Things are 20 times better than when I was in the system 10 years ago. And I wasn't even an international child. I mean, I was born overseas, but I was brought here as an infant. So Micah is the reason that I think a lot of the YouTubers in the similar community I'm in were able to gain the platform that they did. I know Sloan had quite a few subscribers before the Micah stuff happened, but he covered it and he has superbly flown from it, and he deserves that. I think all of those people deserve it. I know Britt covered it, but I don't think Britt was steadily gaining little amounts of subscribers from what I can tell. And when she came out with her crystal ball video is where she's really kind of gained some traction and been more talked about. BX Beast Boy also covered Micah and gained quite a few subs from that, as well as the Dad Challenge podcast. For his like future mental health, I think he's better off away from them. Could they have provided him like a decent life? Yeah, but I mean, money doesn't buy happiness. So although they could have, that was my issue. One of my issues, I don't want to say the issue, that was one of my issues with them, because they tried to say that they couldn't afford it initially. The one clip of her with her Cartier bracelet saying that they were going to buy the therapy that was what, 40 or 70 bucks versus the one that was 500. Like, you have all the money in the world, and then saying that they couldn't afford or find the resources is just BS, to be honest with you. Like, they tried to make every excuse they could to either be about money or on the child, when they had chosen to film the child the whole time they had him. There was no evidence of any of the behavior that they tried to convince people was happening, that it was actually happening at any point. And that's not to say that it isn't a possibility. It definitely is, but it shows the lack of patience and the lack of actual parenting that those two individuals have. If they were struggling with him having any kind of violent tendencies, whether that be towards them or the other children. Like, you're the freaking parent. They needed to learn how to handle it if it was occurring. I mean, that's an argument. It might not have been occurring. We didn't see anything. But again, we're only seeing a window of these family channels' lives. Yeah, Jeffree Star is ridiculous. That's funny. He's almost 80 and said that. Yeah, a lot of people are have the opinion that he was just a business arrangement for them. And I hope to absolutely everything and anything that wasn't the case. I really hope it wasn't. Have I thought about that? Yeah, I have. And it's just so hard for me personally to think they would do that, having their own children, that they could be that heartless towards an innocent child. Like, do I believe everything that they said? I don't think I believe anything, but I really don't want to succumb to it being a business decision for them. I want to more or less think about it as it was a poor choice and that they couldn't figure out how to handle it because they're not mature enough and they don't have the parenting skills to handle it. But I do understand that argument. I've heard that argument. It is valid in my opinion. It's just, for me personally, I just can't succumb to that because I'm an adopted child. And thank goodness that didn't happen to me, but it's something that I worried about all the time, especially in the first couple of years of my adoption. I was a mess, an absolute mess, because of everything I had gone through, all of the trauma I had experienced, all of the lack of people being there for me that should have been there for me throughout all my life. So when I finally was said to have a home forever, it was hard for me to believe. And then, I had baggage. I was a problem child on a multitude of levels. So I acted out and I didn't know how to handle myself. And that was something I worried about. Is this going to be the tantrum at 10 years old, 11 years old, that they're just going to be done with me? That is why it's so hard for people who are in this community to some degree to watch this happen. It is re-traumatizing, especially to those of us who have experienced that, because it does happen. It happens not only in international adoption, but it happens in our adoption systems here in the United States. You're also adopted and you worried about it for years. It's a common worry that we have when we are newly adopted. It takes a long time for us to actually trust. Trust was a huge issue. I still don't trust strangers. I mean, I'm not the kind of person who, like, if you come up to me and I've had people at the gas station, an old guy a few times, not the same guy, but I've had like elderly people not be able to work the pump or say they only have cash, that I will insert my debit card, trusting them that, they really don't have a debit card. That's also because I am able to do those kinds of things. But I'm not going to believe anything everybody says, especially with I haven't had this happen, but I can imagine in time it probably will happen as people come to my channel and things of that nature, that I will have people who are going to try and stir the pot and start stuff with me. I will let you know now. That way, if you ever watch back my videos, I am not one to try and fool. I am not one to mess with. I'm not going to fall for your BS. Because if I ever get a DM that's asking for my help for financial gain, or, trying to talk crap about any other YouTuber, whether it's somebody I like or I don't like, I am not going to just jump on the bandwagon because, you know, I don't, for instance, Katie, I'm not just going to jump on the bandwagon and start DMing you all the reasons I don't like Katie. One, you can watch my videos. And two, it seems weird because you can watch my videos. So why do you want to message me? In the beginning, when I was heavily covering Katie, I did have a couple of people reach out to me to try and make me aware and provide me some information to look at so I could objectively decide if she was a good person or not. I don't think they were intentionally trying to sway my opinion one way or another, but I can tell you I was very vague and like just in the middle with my answers because I'm not going to just pick one side over the other. It takes a lot for me to think you're a trash person. It doesn't take as much for me to think you're a good person. So although I have a barrier there, it's not hard to get over. I'm just not going to believe everybody's BS. If that makes any kind of sense. I don't know if that fully makes sense. But so that's one thing that it's affected me. I'm not super nice to people. I don't think I come off that way on my channel, but I'm a hard person to get to. When you meet me in person, I'm tiny. I'm 5 foot. That was talked about in Brit's live. I'm 5 foot, so I'm short, but I can tell you most people don't think I'm nice when they first meet me, and I don't even have to say anything to them. That's just because I'm not an inviting person, and it's a part of experiencing constant abandonment. I don't want just Joe Schmo to come up to me and me become friends with them for them to walk out in 20 minutes and say, oh, I got what I needed out of her. You know, I got 20 minutes of fill time that I didn't have filled, that now a conversation was filled. Does that make sense? Like, I'm just not that, and I'm not going to be somebody's doormat. I never have been. So a lot of weird little things like that affect my personality and how I interact with people because of the stuff I experienced. And those are things that I am going to talk about in a video. Coming up soon, hopefully. I talked about it the other day. I have some pre-recorded videos, but I just haven't had any time to upload them. So I'm hoping this weekend I'll be able to upload a couple. And at some point, I'm going to have to figure out with you guys, like, how to navigate my content, especially as we continue to grow and build this lovely, supportive community of each other. I want to make sure I'm always providing you guys content that you want. And I understand that the lives are super interactive and I enjoy them better than filming videos. But at some point, I'm going to have to like figure out, like, these are the days I'm going to upload videos and these are the days I'm going to go live. That way, I don't end up overworking myself. It's good that Michelle, that you have a coping mechanism for that, though. Like, a lot of things with you might have like social anxiety to some degree if it affects you to the point that you need something to hold on to. Find a good coping mechanism, like holding on to his shirt. If that helps ground you, then I would utilize that. I know with people who have panic attacks and anxiety, there are different kinds of coping mechanisms for you to do personally as you feel it build up to stop it from reaching the level of a panic attack, to stop it from totally shutting your day down. Does it always work? No. Sometimes you can't prevent it. Sometimes as people, everybody to some degree locks stuff up. And I don't just mean like emotion, like even information. Like sometimes we just don't talk about how our day was. Like Some days my husband will ask me, oh, how was your day? And I'll say, oh, it was good. And although a lot of good or bad things or both could have happened during that day, I'm just so over the day, I don't want to talk about it. So I say, oh, it was good, and leave it at that. But then say something bad happens a couple of days in a row, or I get bad news at work a couple of days in a row. By that third or fourth day, he asked me how my day was. I might just explode and be like, it was crappy, this happened and that happened, and go on like this huge tangent. Or you'll come home and you'll be in like a grumpy mood or something like that because you haven't talked to anybody about it. I am a proponent for talking through things. I talk through almost everything, whether it's with somebody or even off of myself. Like, that might sound silly. I know a lot of people do it, but I will sit in my office at work and I will say out loud, part of it is because of my ADHD, I need to do this, this, and this. And then I will write it down to hold myself accountable to it. So once I get halfway through the day, I will say, have I gotten done what I need to get done? And I will look at my list. And sometimes I've gotten some of it done. Sometimes I've gotten all of it done. And sometimes I get to that halfway mark and I haven't done any of it. Doesn't mean I wasn't productive that day, but it just means that I didn't get to those things. And I know personally, if I didn't have those conversations out loud or with a coworker, I probably would not be as productive as I am. And especially in the field of social work or any kind of work with the community, you really need to have somebody to bounce off what you're struggling with, because oftentimes we're working with people. And people, although are great, they are also super stressful. When potentially someone else's life is in your hands and you just don't know what to do or you don't know where to turn, it is hard to make those decisions and have those discussions with those clients and then not let it affect you personally. So you really do need to have somebody to decompress those things with. And, you know, most companies you can talk with your peers about things like that to get it out, to decompress, because they don't want you to go home and it be affecting you all weekend, because eventually it starts to affect your work product. Eventually it starts to affect you. Yeah, you know, and I understand a lot of people don't like crowds. I have a family member who is very weird about crowds or doing anything like super different. At one point, they really had, like, they would struggle with making phone calls. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It just built up anxiety for that person. Like, it was hard for them to do those things. As they've gotten older, I believe they've learned some coping mechanisms to be able to get through that and do those things, but it still is something that is hard for them to do. And crowds is a common one for people. I don't personally, as long as I'm with somebody that I know, I don't mind crowds, but I'm weird about going into like any public place by myself. It's not that I won't do it. I'm 30. I would hope I can go places by myself, but I do, like, it doesn't do anything. I just feel weird and I feel more heightened. Like, I pay more attention to the people around me, my surroundings. I always make sure I have an exit strategy if something were to happen, or, you know, a plan. If somebody were to approach me and I felt uncomfortable, that's how I am. I don't know why that's happened. I've kind of always been like that as an adult. I don't know if it's because when I was younger, I knew a lot of my female friends had been through some terrible things being alone in public. I don't know if that's what maybe set me to make sure I'm always either with somebody or in a safe location. But you know, growing up, I was relatively in shape and I'm only 5 foot. So I kind of feared I would get picked up and like taken somewhere. Now, I don't think that that's going to happen. I'm not in shape like I used to be. So it wouldn't be as easy to happen, but size has nothing to do with those things occurring to women or to men. I mean, it has nothing to do with it at all. And I think that's why I personally struggle with going places. Like at night, especially since we've moved, I won't go to a gas station or a local store without my husband with me. I just won't. I won't go inside. Now, if they're in the car, then yeah, I'll go inside because they know I went inside, and typically you can see in the building. And there are times being married to military that I haven't had a choice. And I'm telling you, the whole time I'm in the public space, what am I going to do if this happens? Like I'm thinking of safety measures for myself, which is crazy when you think of the kind of work I have done where I have been out in the field in super dangerous situations and not felt that way at all. It's very weird. Yeah, you've forced yourself to go to movies before, and I'm not opposed to doing things by myself. I will do them. Like it doesn't affect me to the point that I won't do it, because I will, and I have. I mean, there's been times my husband's not been home for months on end, and I had no choice but to go get things done. I've always worked, so I'm typically working during the day. So when he is gone, I do have to just suck it up and get it done. I don't let anything actually, although it puts me in it makes me feel weird personally, I don't let it actually affect my way of living. It's not like I will make sure that, I wake up just at crack of dawn to be sure that it's daylight when I go out. I've never let it affect me that much. But I'm sure there's some kind of underlying issue as to why I feel that way. And if you've watched, which you may not have, I have memory issues because of my childhood. It's common that you don't remember things, or that you have selective memory. And I definitely do. I've never been diagnosed with any kind of memory issues, but I can't remember things. I can't remember stuff that happened to me in high school. I can't remember stuff that happened 2 months ago. You do too. You have memory issues. Yeah, it's how your brain copes with trauma. I mean, there's certain things that I remember that I talk about in my videos that are hard to talk about, and they are hard memories. But I know there's so many more that I don't remember, that either I've been told about or I can just assume happened, which is scary. And it affects me today because I can't remember the simplest of things sometimes. I'll remember silly stuff. I'll remember important stuff too, but like going on a vacation or, seeing something different, my husband will try, like he'll think of something as we're doing, he'll think of a memory that we've had, and he'll be like, oh, don't you remember when we were so and so and this happened? He almost expects me to say I don't, because most of the time I don't remember. And he has to provide me more context for me to be able to pull it from my memory to remember it, which at times I'm sure is frustrating to him and to others in my life, because it might be something funny that, was in the spur of the moment thing that if you remembered it in that second, it made it funny. But having to go through and explain it to me, it kind of took away the genuineness of why the memory was brought up in the first place. So that's something that I have to adjust to, that like everybody around me, my parents, my siblings, my extended family, all of my in-laws kind of had to learn that that's unfortunately because they'll tell me when we're visiting family, they'll say oh, don't you remember when you were here last and this happened? You know, they kind of also know I might not remember, which is unfortunate. And it does kind of suck, but it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens more often than I wish it would. And for me to remember anything really prior to like my adoption, it's really hard. And even the first like couple of years of my adoption is hard for me to remember. And then it starts to get like more regular that I remember stuff. But probably from like 13 forward, like 13 younger is what I mean. So from like infancy to 13, it's super, super blotchy. And some of the stuff I remember isn't even off of me remembering, it's off of me being told so many times that I remember it now. Your friend from the 4th grade tells you stuff and you don't remember it. And I mean, part of that's just common and like being human. Like we can't remember everything that happens to us. We can't remember every memory. And some people have, you know, better memories than others. But it's definitely, trauma will definitely affect your brain. It has an effect on your brain in a multitude of ways. Like I said earlier in the stream, like it's the cause of a lot of mental health, different mental health. And it manifests in a multitude of ways. It's almost as if once you've experienced one thing traumatic, you're living with it for the rest of your life to some degree. Whether if it's with how you cope with life in general and manage yourself, or having long-term lasting effects like mental health and managing those, it almost affects you in any way possible. That's going to be like affecting you long-term. I don't necessarily feel like people really grasp that idea. Does the normal, like the average person, think that trauma is a bad thing and like can acknowledge that it's harmful either emotionally or physically or both in some cases? I think the average person can acknowledge that, but I don't think that they're able to acknowledge that it's not just a one-time thing. That trauma is going to long-lastingly have an effect of some kind on that individual, no matter what kind of trauma it is. I mean, you can experience trauma in a number of ways. It can be emotional trauma, it can be physical trauma, it can be all kinds of things. I mean, those are the most common, but you can be in a situation and you're inadvertently traumatized by something that you maybe didn't even experience. Maybe that's something we should talk about is in one of these lives, is just trauma in general. But guys, I think I'm probably gonna wrap it up. I know it's getting rather late. Yeah, it's getting kind of late. And I'm the only one here, so I have to take care of the doggos. They've been pretty good, surprisingly. Usually they're all over the place when nobody's home. But what I think I'm gonna do, of course, Melody, I hope you return, and if anything I've talked about has gathered your interest, like feel free to look at my playlists. The ones that are talking about my upbringing, you will be able to tell which playlist you should direct yourself to. If you care about Katie or any other YouTuber, the drama and my commentary on their actions, that's going to be that playlist. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to probably hop off of here, but I am going to probably upload a couple of videos between tomorrow and Sunday. And then I might go live sometime tomorrow or Sunday. I don't want to do both days this weekend. So I might put a poll up to see if you guys want a morning or an afternoon, and depending on which one you guys pick will be the one I'll probably just give you guys a list of options between, like, I'm not going to do a night one. It'll either be a morning or an afternoon one, and I'll give you the option of both days and times, and you guys can pick. And we will probably just, depending if it's a morning one, I'm super rambly. You can tell I'm getting tired. I will, if it's a morning one, I will get ready. And if it's an afternoon one, it'll probably just be a chat. And I'm planning on going and watching Josh's video from the Dad Challenge podcast and seeing what's going on and seeing if I can find that article and discuss that and see what Katie's been saying, so I can have a discussion about that, because that's, until this Sophie stuff is done, or until Katie stops talking about this Sophie stuff, I'm going to keep covering it, and I'm going to keep calling her out on her BS, because I'm not for it, and a lot of us aren't for it, and I'm not worried about her not liking me. So, I mean, I don't think some of these other YouTubers are worried about her not liking them either. That's not what I meant by that, but I don't care if she sends her fans after me. I don't know what's happened, but looking in my analytics today, somehow, you know, my live talking about her got traction. Not that it's doing great, not that it's like blown up or anything, but it is higher in like being pushed out to people. So I'm sure some of her people may get recommended that video. So don't worry about it. I kind of want to have this conversation before any of that occurs, because I know Britt has been dealing with this here and there. Don't feel like you ever have to defend me or my opinion, because that's not what I expect of you guys. I'm an adult. I'm willing to put my opinion out there. I'm willing to be judged based off of what I say. And I don't want any of you guys to put yourselves in any kind of situation where you feel attacked because you tried to defend me. Don't worry about it. I can handle whatever nasty comment they want to say. I can handle it. And if it's super gross, then I will delete it. And if you guys ever are attacked and I don't notice it, please tell me so I can make sure it's taken care of. As you know, we grow. I want to make sure that everybody feels safe and always feel comfortable in providing your opinion. If I ever offend you or come off aggressive, hit me up and let me know, and I can clarify or explain why I reacted the way I did. So with that being said, I hope everybody has a great day, evening, or night, wherever you are, and I will put that poll up here in a few minutes. Bye, guys.